All right, so this is lesson 69. Okay, Jesus in the upper room with his disciples, or the Last Supper. So again, Mark chapter 14, we'll start reading here and take a look at some of the preparations that need to be made. Okay. Ready, Logan? Mark chapter 14. So starting at verse 12. Follow along, please. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, Where wilt thou that we go, and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? And he sendeth forth 2 of his disciples, and saith unto them, Go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wheresoever he shall go in, shall ye say to the goodman of the house, The master saith, Where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room furnished and prepared. There make ready for us. And the disciples went forth, and came into the city, and found as he had said unto them. And they made ready the Passover. And in the evening he cometh with the 12. So, Jesus shows, we can see, hopefully his disciples can see at that time, how much God is in control of all things, how Jesus knows all things. He sends 2 of his disciples into the city. And who were they to look for? What was the sign they were to be looking for? Garrett? Young man with a pitcher of water. Okay. And then what were they to do? When they see that young man with a pitcher of water, what were they supposed to do then? Hannah. Follow after him. Good. And how did they know what house they were supposed to go to then? Grant? Whatever doorway, right? Whatever home he goes into, good. You go to too. And that will help you determine exactly which house we need to go to. And there, when you get to the house, now you seek for the master of the house. And what do you need to ask the master, Faith? Not necessarily make him some food. What are they asking the master of the house for? Jesse? Right, is there a room that we can stay in your house where a meal can be prepared for Jesus and his disciples, the Passover feast? Is there a room where my people can come to? And of course, there is. There was a large upper room, furnished and prepared. Okay? And then the disciples went back out, told Jesus, and in the evening all of them came into the city and they found that upper room. Okay? So this was Thursday evening of the Passover feast. We know tomorrow morning is Friday in the structure of the Bible. And that's the last day that Jesus will be alive on this earth. Okay? So, it's time for Jesus to begin to get them into the upper room so that they are thinking that they're looking forward to celebrating the Passover feast, but that's not the case. Jesus is going to change things up on them. Okay? So now, they're arriving here at the upper chamber. Go to John chapter 13, verse 1. John chapter 13, verse 1. And we'll read those first few verses. John chapter 13. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, so there we go, his hour is come, it's time, that he should depart out of this world unto his Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he was come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper, and laid aside his garments, and took a towel, and girded himself. After that he poureth water into a basin, and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter said unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter said unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. Ye are clean, but not all. For he knew who should betray him, therefore he saith, Ye are not all clean. They arrive in the upper chamber. There if we go chronologically, it appears as though they had a supper first, and then they were cleaned. It may very well be possible that they were cleaned first. But anyways, they arrive here in the supper chamber. We know the land of Israel is a very dry, dusty, desert land. Your feet are filthy. Okay, wearing open-toed sandals. The bottoms of your feet and leg pick up all that dust and are filthy and dirty. Need to be clean. And it was common in those days, as we saw, because of others like Simon who didn't wash Jesus' feet. We know it was a common custom to wash the feet. You'd have a servant or probably a slave who would wash the feet of these people as they came in or as they lay there by the dinner table eating. Their feet would be cleaned. Okay? An ointment might be put on them because, obviously, of the lack of bathrooms and cleanliness like we have today. So, anyways, what we see here then is that who is going to do the washing of the feet, Joe? Not Peter. Who does the washing of the feet? Courtney? Jesus. He rises up from the supper. He takes off his outer garments and lays them there. Takes a towel. Goes over and grabs maybe the pitcher of water and pours it into a basin, a nice bowl. Begins to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel, and goes on down the line and washes their feet and takes the towel and cleans it off and dries their feet. And then he comes to Simon Peter. Simon Peter is much too proud here. I'm not going to have the master. He's trying to show that he doesn't need the master. The master is somebody important to him. So he doesn't think it's the place of the master to wash the feet. Maybe he's thinking he's going to show up the other disciples here. But either way, he doesn't want his feet washed by Jesus. He says, no, don't wash my feet. And Jesus had to explain to him, Peter, you don't know what's happening here. You don't understand. After this, then you will finally understand, and then you will know what's going on. But right now, you're missing it. And then Peter thinks, probably goes on and argues a bit more. Okay? And then Jesus answers and says unto him, well, if you don't want to be washed, you don't have any part in me. You won't be part. So Peter immediately thinks, well, this is almost an attack. He's drawn back. Why, of course I want to be part of you, Jesus. Well then, if I wash my feet and I'm part of you, well, wash my whole body then. All of me needs to be part of you. Okay? And Jesus has to teach him here, no, Peter. He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit. And ye are clean, but not all. If I wash your feet, that's a picture enough of cleanliness. I don't need to wash your whole body. Again, they're missing. What's the picture here? What are the disciples missing? What's the picture that they don't see? Garrett?
This is like the washing away of sins.
Exactly. This is a picture of the washing away of sins. Okay? And they don't know it. They don't understand it. We have hindsight. We have the Spirit working in us so we can look back and understand what was going on. But they did not at that time. Okay? They did not know exactly what was going on. And then that last statement, and ye are clean, but not all. For Jesus knew who should betray him. If we look back up at the top there, we see the devil having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot to betray him. There's one here who is not clean. There is one who's about to betray him. Okay? So good. That washing, as Garrett said, is a sign of Jesus' blood shed and used to wash away our sins. Now, let's see how Jesus dismisses Judas here. Look at verse 21. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. Now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. He then, lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, He it is to whom I give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, That thou doest, do quickly. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this thing unto him. For some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, Buy those things which we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. Jesus needs to dismiss Judas. He's about to institute the Lord's Supper. The Lord's Supper is a beautiful picture of the communion that we have with Jesus Christ. And we guard the table of the Lord's Supper very carefully. We don't just let anybody and everybody come to church and partake of it. They must be a confessing member in good standing in a Protestant Reformed church, or get special permission from the elders and deacons to partake of that. Jesus here does not want Judas taking of the Lord's Supper. And so Judas is going to be dismissed. But how does that happen? Well, Jesus bluntly comes out and says, One of you will betray me. And what do all the disciples start murmuring about immediately? What are they afraid of? Kimberly? Right. Well, it's not me, everybody. They're trying to make sure that I wouldn't do that. It's not me. And they begin to look around and wonder, now who would possibly do that? We all love you. We've been walking with you, Jesus, for time and time and time again. We've done miracles. We've preached in your name. What do you mean one of us is going to betray you? And so, says the disciple that Jesus loved, we assume that's John, was laying on his bosom, and Simon Peter comes up to him and says, Now ask the master who it is. I mean, he knows, so make him be specific. So John asks Peter, or Jesus says, Now who is it? Which one of us would do it? Because maybe they think we can shake it out of that man, or we can figure something out. And so John asks that to Jesus, and Jesus gives. He says, Well, I'll tell you who it is. He's the one to whom I give the sop to. The sop would be a piece of bread that was dipped, into that bitter sauce from the Passover feast. And that's the one I give it to. That will be the one. And so what does he do? He goes and dips the sop and he gives it to Judas. So if any of us were in the room and we said, there's a killer in the room and I know who it is and I'm going to give them a sop or a dip of bread in some bitter sauce to give it to them, what might all the rest of you immediately do to that person? Jesse? Yeah, jump on him, stop him. But that doesn't happen here because there's a bit of confusion. You see, the sop given to the first person was a sign of honor. This is confusing to the disciples. It's given to Judas. That's an honor. They have mixed understanding. And all of their amount of being worked up and wondering what's going on and who could possibly do this, they're confused. And so what they see happening, and Jesus specifically does that to confuse them. Because Judas needs to go out. He needs to go and betray Jesus so that Jesus can die on the cross to save us from our sins. So Jesus doesn't want the disciples to know explicitly who is going to be doing this. And so he confuses them by giving Judas that sop as though it was a piece of bread that had honor on it. Instead, Jesus then, after giving him the sop, as we read there, he leans over, That thou doest, do quickly. Gives Judas the command. Judas knows what's going on, and Judas takes off and he leaves. And again, the other disciples maybe wonder, it's nighttime, why would he be going out? But in their minds, well, Judas is the man with the bag of money. Maybe he's going off. Probably took that bag of money too, we can assume. Maybe he's going off to pay the keeper of this home for all that he's done for us. Or maybe he's going to give some money to the poor. Jesus sent them out for that way. They don't understand that what Judas is about to do is to go betray their master. For surely they would have stopped him otherwise. But that's not God's plan, and that's not Jesus' plan. That might have been their plan or our plan, but that's not the case. And so Judas goes out into the night. What is that night, that darkness a picture of? As always in the Bible. Darkness, nighttime is a picture of, Kenton, sin. He goes off into the darkness, into his sin. And he's going to go find the chief priests and the rulers who have paid him those 30 shekels of silver. And he's going to tell them Jesus is up in an upper room and he'll soon be leaving out of there. We know where he's going. Garden of Gethsemane. And that's where Judas will eventually find Jesus. Maybe they had to go stop at the house first and the master told them no. And others saw, well, he went over that way and Judas knows. He likes to maybe go over there to the Garden of Gethsemane. So Judas is dismissed. He's sent away so that he does not partake in that Lord's Supper. Now we go back to Matthew chapter 26, verse 26. So Matthew chapter 26. We can actually look back at verse 25 just so that you can see we're picking up right where we left off. Then Judas, which betrayed him, answered and said, Master, is it I? He saith unto him, Thou hast said. So Judas is the one who's about to betray Jesus. Okay? Then we see verse 26. And as they were eating, well, you want to join us again, right, Damon? No. Saves the day again for you, huh? All right, verse 26 of Matthew 26 here. Follow along in your Bibles. As they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to his disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup and gave thanks and gave it to them, saying, Drink ye all of it. For this is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say unto you, I will not drink henceforth of this fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. And when they had sung an hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. So, here we have the institution of the Lord's Supper. Jesus has done away with the Passover. And that's why it's called the Last Supper. Not only is it the Last Supper that is shared by the disciples and Jesus together, but it's also, as I asked on your sheet, what else is it a picture of? It's last because it's the last what? Garrett? The last Passover feast. No longer does the Passover feast need to be celebrated. Now, of course, Jews will continue to celebrate it in the future because they don't believe in Jesus, that he's the Messiah. But those that believe, for us, we know we don't need to celebrate the Passover anymore. Now we celebrate the Lord's Supper 4 times a year here in Randolph in church. The churches do it differently. There's not specific, explicit directions about how frequently or how often one needs to do it. But, just as we had last week Sunday, we had that Lord's Supper here, we see it again too. It's a picture of Jesus' shed blood. It's a picture of Jesus' broken body. Body, not broken, but it's communion that we have with Jesus, that we look forward to that communion that we'll have with him in heaven. Okay? So, that is shared with the disciples, and then out they go.